Mr. Chairman, the other question was from Mumina. Again, is only really going on to the same issue. 11th of August, nominee of the board and the contradiction. You will notice, Mheshimiwa, that the letter from Ukui Atani did not talk about the resignation. That's why I did not address it in my response. The letter from Jamhuri talked about my resignation. And that's there is no contradiction there, because I was nominated by Jamhuri, and therefore if they are exiting, they would request their nominees to resign, and also therefore I would resign as a chair. But I was not appointed as a chair by Helios. I was appointed by the board. Yeah. I was asked whether the company was involved and what was the value of the shares. The company was not involved. Well, Shimura, I want to make it really clear and to plead with you to understand that the company, and we did not have to be involved. Two shareholders are talking between themselves. There was if there was a valuation of the company, then we would have been involved. But there was no valuation of the company. What they did is to agree that, yes, I want to get out, you can take my shares for free, and there is a loan that I had given that I would want you to pay me back. What was the value of the loan as per the audited accounts, and that's the figure which was agreed. So the company was not involved in any way in the discussions of the company. And the chairman and the board members do not have to be involved when two shareholders are talking. The only time the company gets involved is at the end, because the transfer of the shares is a function of the board. And this is when it came to us on the 19th of August. Mheshimiwa, I need to state once again that I do not represent Helios at all. I know Helios, of course, but I do not represent them. I was nominated by them, and perhaps the only reason why they nominated me is because I was already in the board as a chair during Orange times. I don't think they would have nominated me if it was not that way. The next question was whether the loans were guaranteed by government. No, they were not guaranteed by government. These are shareholders' loans to the company, and is at the risk of the shareholder who is giving the loans. Mheshimiwa Gideon, you asked about the challenges that I mentioned in my letter to Ukui Atani, and really these are obvious. Maybe that's why I did not even list them out. But by us sitting as a board and transferring the shares to GOK, this company would have been 100% government-owned, therefore a parastatal. And the question I was asking, for instance, in terms of challenges, is what happens to the staff? What happened to procurement? What happened to the finance management? All those are challenges that would have come once the company became a parastatal. And those are the challenges that I was referring to. You talked whether I've got an interest in Jamhuri. I have said clearly no, once again. Whether MKF has an interest, the answer is no. Whether I received any interference from GOK in any way, the answer is no. I never discussed with any government official about this transaction. I was not privy to. And whether the CS and the former head of public service coerced me in any way, they didn't, Mheshimiwa, because if they were going to, they would have requested me to sit and approve the transfer of the shares. But I wrote back and said, no, we cannot approve the shares because, we wanted the Attorney General's opinion that this transaction has been carried in accordance with the law, and secondly, we did not have the quorum. And Waheshimiwa, I want to tell you, if you cleared this transaction, we will transfer the shares tomorrow. But now that there is an inquiry, of course, we would also want to know, was it carried in accordance with the law? Just the same way that we are asking ourselves. And I put it in writing. That's why I'm really surprised when I'm being called hostile, because I thought, Mheshimiwa, I have really given all the information. Whose interest does Eden Njoroge represent? As I said, I represent the interests of the company. I don't represent Jamhuri. I don't represent GOK. As an independent board member, and there are many boards I sit on, where I don't represent the interest of the shareholders, but it is really representing the interest of the company and ensuring that the company is managed correctly. Admittedly, this one has not been managed correctly for many, many reasons. But those are things that we can discuss later on. You asked whether you are dealing with the right person, and Mheshimiwa, this is a question which was asked by Mheshimiwa, and this is really indeed a question that we have been asking ourselves, because yes, we have given you the information as we knew it, but there are two parties to the transaction, which is the GOK and Helios / Jamhuri Holdings. And those are the people who can be able to give more of the information. As for us, it came to us at the end, and we asked the questions, and that's all we can be able to tell, Mr. Chairman. Then Bensida asked about Jamhuri Holdings and SPV. Again, this is not unusual. This happens all the time. SPVs are formed as a special purpose vehicle to acquire or to invest in certain investments, and this is always much easier for people who are investing than to get out. And Waheshimiwa, I need to maybe just step back a little, because this whole issue keeps on coming as to who are the beneficiaries of this. And I need to say that as a private equity fund, this is generic, so I'm not talking about Helios, but I know Helios raised $1.1 billion in 2014. But what would have happened is that people pledge. These are pension funds, sovereign funds, development financial institutions, high net worth individuals who would put in money, and these are called LPs, the limited partners. They put in money, this fund together, and Helios is the manager of that fund. And Helios says, look, we are going to invest in various companies, and we will return back your money with a certain hurdle rate. Could be 15%, 20%, that's what the agreement. And anything above that, if you are so good in investing and you make more money, then the rest of it is yours. You share with your partners and all those who have been involved in all those transactions. And that's the way it works. So if you asked what could have happened, is that yes, these LPs, the limited partners, would have contributed the $50 million which came in here, and it came in 2017. And when the exit happened, when the money was paid, ideally that money should be paid back to all those LPs. And that's the way it works, and that's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bwana Njoroge, you will field a few more questions. To honorable members, you've got to understand that it is in the interest of this committee that you prosecute your matter to its logical conclusion. It is. What we have to do is now agree on a procedure of how to do it, because if we were to open the floor for follow-up after follow-up, we might not even cover the real ground. So for this moment, if there was a follow-up on the first batch of questions, kindly note it down, and I will ensure personally that you prosecute it if it is not fully answered by the end of this round. Let's take the second round of questions. I want to hear voices that I haven't heard. The Honorable Tanui, the Honorable Muiti, Honorable Kitur, Honorable Ruto, and Honorable Kivasu. I think we can accommodate you, Honorable Makilaps, in this. Remember where you got your order from. So let's start. And to the benefit of this committee, even as we are recording the responses, please structure your intervention as a question so that it is answered directly and we are able to benefit the most from your question. Honorable Member for Kuresoi.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to know from the board chair, Bwana Njoroge, whether he was furnished with the transaction details to enable him start the process of transferring shares to the government. My second question, Bwana Chair, I want to seek clarification from him also. He has mentioned that transferring these shares to the government marks the end of the company. So I want him to come up with more clarifications on that. Thank you.
Let's make it as brief as he has. Mheshimiwa Bernard Kitur.
Thank you very much. I must admit that, Eddie, you are, as someone has alluded, very smart and extremely calm, that sometimes trying to get whatever probably we have in our minds is getting a bit difficult. But I want to ask you, Eddie, that, Mr. Njoroge rather, at the coming in of Helios, did you do the due diligence because you are the chairman? And if you did that, what information did you know about Jamhuri Holdings? Secondly, as you've been nominated by Jamhuri Holdings, because these are the persons who have given you the mandate to be where you are, though you are saying that you are independent, maybe that can be figuratively in terms of paper. The question is, have you been interacting with Paul Cunningham? What information do you have about Jamhuri? Thirdly, is that you've mentioned that the shares right now is in bearance. The transaction is not complete. Do you think, Mr. Njoroge, you still need to oversee right now the search for the new investor? In light of all these things that are happening, I think on a fair ground, don't you think at some point you just need to get yourself out of this? Because your name is appearing all over, and the fact that there is now a massive scandal that is involved. Do you think you need to be part and parcel of overseeing the search for the next investor to come and invest in the Telkom, the new investors coming into Telkom? I think the other one will be a follow-up question if I get an opportunity when I get your answers to that. Thank you.
In the order that we had agreed, Mheshimiwa Kivasu.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. One is on the first letter. Eddie alludes to he was not privy to negotiations between the shareholders. And you are the chair of the board of Telkom. What is your mandate as the chair for the board? Because you must be aware of what all shareholders are doing. 2, in the letter from Paul, he said you resign as a JHL appointed director and chair. You have just said the chairman was from the board. You appointed by the board. So my concern is, what is Paul trying to do to tell you to resign on both at the same time? 3, in your own words, and as the chair of the board of Telkom, if the transaction of Kenya shillings 6,014 went through, could it have been within the law? In your own words. Thank you.
We were going down the line. Let's go to the Honorable Ruto.
What? The last question is, in your own words, as the chair of the board of Telkom, if the transaction of 6,014 went through, would it have been within the law?
Thank you so much, Chair. First of all, allow me to congratulate the Chair Telkom for the good presentation, and by virtue of you availing yourself to this committee. I have some few questions to ask or to inquire. One, while we were engaging the control of budget and the transactions or the communication we received from our presentation, the whole discussion was about buying of aliens by GOK, exiting from control of Telkom. But then further engagement, even to the Solicitor General, we were made to understand, and even from your presentation, that indeed money of 6 billion was not meant to buy off the shares, but rather to discharge a loan obligation. Again, you proceeded to give us a few information, some little information on the loan obligation, that it's not even the 51 billion, a million US dollars, but rather it goes all the way to additional of 239 US dollar million loan. You've been the chair for the last 13 years. As much as from your presentation, you seem to play a victim than a person of interest in this discussion. What was the purpose of this law? It's good for Kenyans to know, because we are talking now, we've lost around 6 billion. What was the purpose of this loan as far as in the books of Telkom? Now again, you've asked us, or you in your presentation you said you are not privy to any information. But under Public Audit Act, Telkom is of interest in matters of public disclosures, and it will be of interest to Auditor General to carry out audit process under Telkom. And the key auditee is the board where you are the chair. What are you reporting in your books of accounts as far as equity statement is concerned? What are you reporting as at now? Are you telling us Jamhuri Holdings is still in existence now that you are not aware? Could that one amount to misleading information? At your presentation, you raised a matter to do with Jamhuri Holdings writing to Telkom Kenya indicating their intention to terminate management service. Again, I want clarity in this particular statement. Are you telling us, besides Jamhuri Holdings being an investment hub of aliens in Telkom, again, they were undertaking management services, so they are both shareholder and at the same time managers of the business in Telkom? So something we need to know, so that we're able to differentiate your position being an independent director. We have an investor called Jamhuri Holdings, and at the same time, again, we have a manager or someone who runs the management of the concern. Many issues I wanted to raise on your directorship and your chairman, which for the first time also, this could be a learning class where we'll have somebody nominated without representing your interest. But it would be of much importance for us and Kenyans to learn. What is this incentive behind Edin Joroke running chairmanship of Telkom Kenya with all this ulabalu, bingi-bongi business of Orange, all this, and you still remain to have the confidence of being retained as a chairman? What was the incentive behind this? And here again, you're acting innocent. You don't know what is happening. But for 13 years, you've been the chair of this particular concern. I mean, it begs a lot of other questions that probably you are trying to hide now, but it is an indication that there is a conspiracy to hide some crucial information in this. Where is the shares of GOK now that it has not been transferred? In whose hands is this shareholding is? Who owns them now? Aliens have sold off their shares of at $1. In whose hands is this as at now? Because you are soliciting for a new investor. So is this person claiming ownership of Telkom, especially on the portion of the GOK? Solicitor General, the other day while you were here, told us that Jamhuri Holdings have not left. They are still shareholders in Telkom. Could you confirm that they are still shareholders and that they have not exited fully? They are still existing. Finally, in your view, why was this particular transaction took place during a crucial period when Kenyans were in election? And we understand during election period, I mean, the environment is not conducive for such high magnitude of transaction to be undertaken. in your own personal interest? Was it in good faith? Why at this point and not any other time? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Ruto. The final two questions are from the Honorable Mwiti. You go first because we haven't heard your voice. And then we'll get a question from the Honorable Makilaps. Make it brief, make it pointed, make it a question.
Thank you. Eddie, according to your presentation, you state that you never participated in the transaction. At the same time, Eddie, you are indicating that you are aware of the transaction. You are aware of the transaction or the communication through the communication. Eddie, Jamhuri was registered in Mauritius. Who are the owners? Was it done as a conduit to siphon money, Kenyan funds, out of the country? Then, and the chairman, according to you, was this transaction illegal? If it was illegal, chairman, what did you do to inform the authorities on the transaction? Chairman, how can you exonerate yourself from this transaction? However, unless you confirm to this house that you are not part and parcel, we may state that you associate yourself with the transaction and according to you it's illegal. How do you exonerate yourself? Thank you.
Thank you. You've even given us a template of how to ask this question. Some of the issues members were struggling to ask. You are able to summarize them into questions, very pointed and direct. Kindly, finally, Mheshimiwa Makilap.
Thank you, Chairman. Number one, Edin Choroke, if there was a quorum on this board of Telkom, you could have exited. I think that is yes or no answer. The chairman could have exited if there was a quorum. Now, it means to you, all transactions of buyout of Jamhuri and Helios was complete, and the only thing that is left to transfer the shares to one man called Government of Kenya is only left with a quorum. If that is yes, then why are you again initiating another transaction with the current government, and yet they have not owned it, and yet you don't have quorum? Is that not illegitimate? Lastly, Chairman Joroke, you started this cow called Telkom Kenya in the first 13 years or so was owned by two owners, shareholders. One, Government of Kenya at 40%. At the time of your entry, it is Helios who bought Orange from France. At that time, that is when Edin Joroka was brought on board. And then Helios is the owner. We've gotten a lot of literature from, since we started investigation, who owns Jamhuri. The owner of Jamhuri is called Helios. The owner of Jamhuri called Helios is the first one to appoint, to nominate one Joroka to Telkom. When Helios bought or came in the name of Jamhuri, it is the same Jamhuri who nominated Edin Joroke. Is it not the same Helios that has just been maintaining you in that Telkom all through, but in different names? And you say you don't know all this. And you know, they even removed themselves from management. They removed themselves entirely from management, everything kumanisha. Hata wa Jamhuri na Helios washapata pesa yao, hata walipeana free shares, wakachukua tu loan, wakapotea. Wakawacha wewe hapo ndani ukisama, sasa you are illegal and you want to start another negotiation. How?
Now we'll get responses Chairman Eddie, give the microphone to Honorable Mumina. I would imagine it is a clarification on a question she had asked earlier.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, it's a follow-up on my earlier question, and this time I want to probably ask it in a different way. Mr. Eddie, you said you represent the interest of Telkom, the company that you are chairing. If that is the case, why will it not bother you agreeing to Jamhuri, writing to you saying that the transaction that we've gone into, we've concluded, and you are required by the law to resign. So please give us an undated resignation letter. You are happy to do that. But when you are asked by one CS Treasury to undertake transaction on the same, you are quick to say because you are not in the know, you are not able to do it. Not just the quorum as a board. You also indicated that you have no idea of what was going on. You've never been privy to the transaction and you cannot engage in that. Make me understand kindly.
I'll want to allow for a response from Chairman. And Bwana Njoroge, there are quite a number of questions that have been thrown your way. To aid you in structuring your responses, these questions have, in all the way they have been put, some of them very articulately, some of them quite verbose. Try in responding to help members lift the veil of secrecy that is covering this entity known as Jamhuri Holding, because then you would be aiding this committee in its inquiry. If you can help us in lifting the veil, take us a step further from the earlier submissions that we have gotten into knowing what is this company called JHL, what is this entity. From these questions also, there is a thematic area that is running across. Please shed light, in your view, on your understanding of this transaction, its legality or otherwise. This has to do with the players, the monies involved, but also the question that is brought by the Honorable Ruto on the timing, on the curious timing of when this transaction was being undertaken. Finally, very important, especially to the committee of CII, please establish for this committee what is the legal status of Telkom as we speak today. Who owns Telkom today? And how do they come to end? That's the whole summary of the questions you're hearing. So kindly let me allow Chair to also summarize this session.
Thank you very much. And but honorable members, good to note the other witnesses for this particular case are also here. And maybe some questions, and as we have Communications Authority and you have the Privatization Commission, they're already here. And perhaps some of these responses, as you have clearly seen, needs the real owners, who are Jamhuri Holdings and Helios. However, Bwana Njoroge, I'm a little bit concerned because I have taken time to read through the agreement that you have provided that was signed on the 31st of May, that is headed strictly confidential execution version. And I note the other document that, and this is the one that has been done by Anjarwala and Hannah advocates. There is a shorter version by Telkom, but by Jamhuri. But this execution version on page 4, clause 1113, and I read, final completion means completion of the sale and purchase of the sale shares and the transfer of the Jamhuri Holdings Limited shareholder loans from JHL to GUK and the issuance of the government treasury bond to JHL in accordance with this agreement. And this agreement seemed to be properly sealed by both parties, which is the former ambassador for the former CS Treasury for GOK, Mr. Paul Cunningham for Jamhuri Holdings. So this transfer of the loans, these loans are two. So in the entire hearings, we've been able to establish there are two loans. One of these loans is USD 51,186,057. That is loan including interest. That translates to this 223 payment of 6 billion shillings. But there's a second loan of 199,699,744. If you add interest of 40,238,948, so the total of this second loan is 239,938,692. This, if you convert at the current exchange rate, comes to around 30 billion shillings. My question therefore is, Mr. Chairman, could we be dealing with this 6 billion only for us to conclude and this Jamhuri Holdings and Helios Holdings comes and claims the additional 30 billion? Because the agreement here, as signed, as properly executed by both Treasury and their shareholders, which is Jamhuri Holdings, talks about the acquisition of the two loans. But the transaction so far reveals the payment of the 6 billion as the first loan. So are we expecting, therefore, again, another claim of the 30 billion that is supposedly supposed to be paid by issuance of a government bond? Lastly, if one of the findings of this committee, joint committee, or one of the observations is that as we recommended we stop this payment, again we say we stop this acquisition and we look for a strategic partner who has better terms, and like this one that even says that we have to go and arbitrate in Mauritius, would we have any legal and additional legal liability? Because financial liability. And specifically, I really want to hear the answer of these 239 billion. And these additional 30 billion shillings. Whether the 6 billion actually covered this one, or this again can be claimed, in future. And if it is not to be claimed, but transferred to the government of Kenya as per the contract, then what would mean if we go someone else? Will they again have to transfer this particular loan to this particular entity? And perhaps as we conclude, is there any hope for Telkom? Is there hope?
Good question.
Is there hope for Telkom? You have been making losses.
Yeah.
That's true. Your CEO told us you have strategic investments, but we have some places that are making losses, others are making profit. But is there a way of salvaging the employment of over 1,200 employees? Is there hope? Can we salvage this particular situation, or are we hell bent with this particular payment? Last one, Alaf, now you respond.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Mr. Joroke, when you are presenting, before I declared you a hostile witness, you said that you have been on board of many companies. Unfortunately, this one is not well managed. That's what you said. And Helios 3. Helios, there are many. I don't know, but there's 3. Yeah. They have been offering services, management services to Telkom. And yet you are saying that it's a poor management. is that another way of actually continue to milk Telecom? And why did you not resign after realizing that this company is not well managed? Or why could you have put effort to turn around the company? Maybe that's what we need to tell us. 2, there was a proposal to merge Telecom with Airtel, especially on telecommunication department, which would have actually made, that much would have created another big telecommunication company to compete with the Safaricom. What were the issues? Why did not the merger go on? Maybe what were the challenges? Maybe you may be able to tell us. Thank you.
And perhaps, Chair, remember the 239 billion, the current legal status, and whether it's actually legally possible to enter into another contract with another investor now that there's a duly executed agreement between GOK and Telkom. And again, I noticed on page 12 of the execution version I was reading you to you, actually purpose to indemnify Jamhuri Holdings and Helios from any legal or any proceedings whatsoever. So again, if we again signed to indemnify them from any legal obligations, then what would that mean if we went ahead and cancelled this? And what does that mean to any prospective agreement that we could seek with a strategic investor?
Thank you. Mr. Chair. May I, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Thank you very much, members, for all those questions. I'll start with Honorable Tanui, and then I'll come back to your summary questions, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Tanui asked whether I was furnished with the transaction details to enable us to proceed, and the answer is no. Honorable Tanui, we never received anything. The shareholders were talking. Wherever they were talking, we do not know, and we were not involved. And again, I need to say that it is not unusual for this to happen, because as board members, we are responsible for the company, not what the shareholders are doing. You asked whether I say that this is the end of the company if it was to become a parastatal, and yes, there is another question which has been asked in similar vein. And the answer is yes. This company cannot operate as a parastatal. This company cannot depend on treasury for funding. Telecommunication business is a business which takes in a lot of money. I wish to advise you, honorable members, that our competitors spend about 25 billion shillings on capex, on capital expenditure alone every year. We cannot do that through government funding. And this is why for us, for some of us, even the reason why we were not keen even on this to go ahead was the fact that the moment we did this, Chairman, and you talked about the 508 employees, that would have been the end of it. And this has been my concern. People asking why you stayed on. I have stayed on because I have concern for the company. We have tried whatever we could, and all the years we have tried to get government at least to make sure that there is a level playing ground. But we have a dominance in this market. We cannot compete with competition because they are too dominant. And this is what we have been trying to get. And I do hope that the ICT committee, we can engage as we go forward to see what can be done to help Telkom, because it is in the interest of this country to have competition. You cannot have a monopoly on telecommunication. So we do need to help the others to make sure that they survive. And so on this particular point, I would want to talk about the merger with Airtel, which we wanted to merge. Yes, it would have made a very strong number two. We have number one and then number two. And this would have made sure that at least the competition was better. Airtel has got deeper pockets than us, and they have been able to expand. And if you look at what they have done, even since the merger was refused, they have done very, very well. The transaction was rejected by the government. We don't know the reasons why they rejected it. We were simply told that we would not go ahead with the transaction. Would we do it again today? We would be keen, but I'm not too sure that Airtel themselves would be keen to do it. They have gone so far ahead now that they would not be interested to be with us. But there are some of the people, obviously, that we are still talking to as we look for a third or another investor. Honorable Kitu, you asked whether, when Helios came in, whether we did due diligence, and what did we know about Helios, what information you have about Paul Cummins. Do you think you need to be overseeing a new investment? And I'll answer those questions in the way you have phrased them. First of all, in terms of doing the due diligence, we did not do a due diligence ourselves as a company. The person who was going to be partners with the government is the one who would have done a due diligence on the incoming partner, but not the company itself. So the government must have done their due diligence on Helios, and it is really the government who can be able to answer that question. What information do you have about Paul Cummins? I don't even know Paul Cummins. I've never met him. And he is a director of Jamhuri Holdings. He obviously works for Helios, but he is a director of Jamhuri Holdings. But we communicate, but I have actually not even met Paul Cummins. I think he is based in London. Do you think that you should be overseeing the new investor? And this is really the question which was also asked by Honorable Kibasu as to what am I doing there. And I want to assure you I can't wait to get out of Telkom Kenya. The moment we finish with this transaction, as I said, I will step down. I have already sent in my resignation. I'm not there for any interest at all, except the interest of the company and the staff whom we have. And this company, if it was to fail, you have over 600 employees who would be losing their job. What is your role as Jamhuri? I'm not in Jamhuri, as I said, and I'm nominated by Jamhuri. And there was a question which was asked, yes, how could they nominate you? And I said this earlier on, I was in Telkom Kenya from 2011. It's not 13 years, Mheshimiwa, it's 12 years. I have been there. And when they came in, Helios in 2016, because I was there, they then said, could we also nominate you to be a director nominated by ourselves? That's how I was nominated. And the board itself appointed me as the chair of the organization. If the transaction of 6.014 was within the law, and I think that's why we are here. That's what we are trying to delve deep into, and that's what I would want to know myself. And that was my question to Honorable Kuyatani when I sent him the letter, is to clarify that this transaction has been done within the law. I never got a response, so I cannot really be able to answer whether all the approvals had been gotten and all the issues that government needed to do to make sure that the transaction was done legally. I did not know, and I have said it, and that's what I wrote to Honorable Kuyatani. The question to my CFO, the Director of Finance, to confirm whether this $47 million came and what it was used for, and really the need of the funding for the company. And this is really something that we need to discuss around ourselves. That this company requires so much money. If it becomes government, then what do we do with the company? And I'll defer this. The Chairman, with your permission, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, Chairman and honorable members of the committee. So the issue of the shareholder loans, and these shareholder loans go back to the time when Orange, was the majority shareholder in Telkom, and this in effect was how the company has been financed over time. Now it is not unusual for companies to be financed in that way. Sometimes it's share capital, sometimes it's through shareholder loans, sometimes it's a combination of the two. But honorable members, as I think we went through last Tuesday, but I will just repeat for clarity and for the benefit of the members who were not there. So at the time of the takeover by Helios from Orange, there was a certain amount of funding that had been put in by Orange in the form of shareholder loans, and then during the time of Helios ownership between 2016 and 2017, they then put in the additional $47 million, which is referred to in the letter that Chairman received from then CS Treasury. So that's why there's that distinction. There's that clear distinction between the two. Now, to answer another question which was asked a bit earlier, what is the status of those loans in the books of Telkom? Those loans are still being carried there because Telkom has not repaid those loans. Okay, so if the shareholders within themselves have assigned or moved the obligations under the loans between themselves, as far as Telkom Kenya is concerned, those loans are still on our balance sheet. They have not yet been repaid. So I hope that clarifies that position. You see, for us, until we are informed that they have changed, and for us, we are carrying a number on the balance sheet, as it was before. Yeah.
Address the chair.
Are
you done?
Yes.
So you submit.
Yes.
Honorable members, what we will do, we will not open the floor for another plenary, taking into consideration that we have two more witnesses to see today. What I will quickly ask is, as a last activity, there are members who have walked in and have been part of these sessions. So if quickly, Sergeant, you would pass the microphone round for just the introductions that have not been made, so that we can get some concluding remarks from Chairman, and then we shall adjourn this sitting. Just identify yourself and your constituency and which committee you sit in.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Joseph Maero Yula, Member of Parliament for Butula, and a member of Finance and National Planning Committee.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Kakuta Maimai, Member of Parliament for Kajiado East constituency and member of the ICT Committee.
I am George Asunkuya, MP Kajiado West constituency, a member of Finance and National Planning Committee. Thank you.
Chairman, as you conclude yet again, will we, after your submissions, be a bit more clearer about who Jamhuri Holdings is and what their dealings are at Telkom? Are we able to know the legality or illegality of the transaction that we're trying to investigate into? And finally, where has all this left Telkom? What's the legal status for standing
okay. Thank you.
Telkom?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I can answer that, Mheshimiwa. Are we reporting the right thing?
Honorable Jamatia, is there a procedural matter? Kindly hand the microphone.
Straight to my question is, what is the work of Telkom Kenya, as in day-to-day work of Telkom Kenya? What do they do?
Okay. Although they appeared before us earlier and had already introduced themselves. But kindly hand the microphone over to Chairman. Chairman Eddie, kindly make your concluding remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. But before I do, I would want to answer Honorable Kitur. On the issue of what we are reporting, the last audited accounts we have was 21st December 2021. We are in the process of completing the 2022, and they would reflect the debts as they are, because we have not transferred them to GOK, so they are still Jamhuri and the government. So we are reporting, and our audited accounts are available, and that's the way we conclude. Right, Mr. Chairman, if you allow me, in terms of conclusion, there are, as you said, maybe several thematic areas that I need to address very quickly as I conclude. The first one is on the issue of Jamhuri Holdings Limited, which, as I said, I'm not a representative of Jamhuri, so I cannot speak authoritatively about Jamhuri Holdings. I'm a nominee of Jamhuri Holdings. The only person who possibly can be able to speak as to what is the composition of Jamhuri would be Jamhuri or stroke Helios. But all I know, and I can only say from what I know, is that Jamhuri Holdings Limited was an SPV which was set up to hold the shares of Helios. And Jamhuri Holdings, therefore, is owned by Helios. That's really as far as I know. Whether this transaction was done legally or illegally, that's the question I asked Honorable Ukui Atani when I wrote to him on 29th of August, requesting for a letter, a legal opinion from the Attorney General, confirming that everything had been done in accordance with the law. I still did not get an answer, and I'm hoping that, Chairman, by the time you finish this inquiry, there will be an answer to that. You asked about me to finish off and really confirm to this committee what is the legal status of Telkom today. The legal status of Telkom, as far from where we sit as a board, is that it is still owned 60% by Jamhuri Holdings and 40% by GOK. Yes, we are in the process of looking for a new investor who would then take over the 60%, which was supposed to go to GOK, and put in and pay off the new loan, the $51 million. Mr. Chairman, I think I've covered the thematic areas. As for my role as the chairman, as I said, the moment this transaction is completed, I will step down. I have already sent in my resignation letter. I can't wait to get out. I would want to get out of this. I promise you. Thank you.
There's a question I raised about the $299 million loan.
Yes.
The 239.
Okay. The 239, through you, Mr. Chairman, the 239 was the old debt. In 2016, France Telkom had put in approximately $400 million as shareholders' loans from 2007 when they took over to the time they exited in 2016. So when Helios came in, they took over those loans. And one of them was 213, currently is at $239 million, and the government had taken the other loan of $133 million. So that loan is owed by Telkom Kenya to whoever is holding the loan. And that would mean that if the loans were novated to GOK, then we, as Telkom Kenya, would owe the government the $239 million plus the $51 million. Yeah.
Now, which now begs the question: what do you think? And this is not, you did not make the decision, as you said. Then, what do you think then was the wisdom on retiring the $51 million and not the 239? Were probably the terms of those two different loans separate, or why do you think the wisdom was retire one and transfer the other, and Jamhuri Holdings being comfortable, to only get money for one and just transfer the other? And here they are happy to retire the smaller loan, but transfer, the bigger loan.
I think the wisdom, Chair, would have been that this is new money that they put in after they came in 2016. And that's the money, and I'm only speculating, of course, because they would only be looking at this is the new money we put. If we get this money in, we are willing to give this company back to government. As for the old loans, we are willing to give them also the old loans that we had bought from French Telkom. That's the only wisdom, is that this is new money they had actually put in.
I know Chairman has quite a number of follow-ups on that. Chair, I don't know if you want to give it a go.
Please do. Before we ask. Ma'am, I have exhausted. I have exhausted my questions. He has answered. My appeal to you, my co-chair, is let us take it straight to the point so that we conclude this particular matter.
There is a matter that was not conclusive, and it was asked severally by members. It was about the nature of your directorship. And they were asking, is this an appointed director? Is it a nominated director? And you said that there is someone who nominated you, and then the board appointed you. Do you want it on record that you are a nominee director?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And even the letter from Cunningham talks about directors nominated for appointment by Jamhuri.
So being a nominee director, and you even
it's not
more
nominee, no. There's a difference,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
yes,
It's
that's
not
what-
nominee director.
Okay.
Is proposed for appointment by Jamhuri.
That is important, Chair.
Yes, yes.
So
It's not nominee.
your submission to this committee is that you're not a nominee director.
No.
Hence, you're qualified to be an independent director.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
That was critical. That was critical. Straight to the point, Honorable Ruto. Straight to the point, Honorable Kimayo, and then we close it.
Thank you so much. Straight to the point, I was expecting Chairman to exonerate himself from his conclusive remarks. I'll just ask a simple question. What is the incentive that not anybody else other than Eddie Njoroge for, and while you are introducing your statement yourself, you quoted 2010 and not 2011. That's why I picked 13 years. Now, what is the incentive around this thing? Because a lot has been said here and there, and we were expecting to know the difference. Number two, in your own opinion, because you are a senior citizen and you worked for this government for quite some time, do you think, was it right to have this transaction, which was transacted in a couple of few days, letters writing from 19, 18, 19, 22, and conclude transaction within that period? In your own just opinion, without any attaching, do you think it was genuine, it was fair? For the sake of Kenyans to follow up this thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, there is a follow-up question which you just asked some few minutes ago on the directorship at the board. I don't know if it's myself alone or with other members of the committee that something is not coming up clearly. The witness has told us that is on the board courtesy of Ilios. It is Ilios who put him on the board. And after getting it to the board, all the other board members made him the chairman. I don't know if that's right. So if it was not for Ilios, you would not be in that board. Is that right? So it is rational that whoever puts you into the board, you will act for them. It's rational. So I don't know whether the witness is really honest with us, because there's no way somebody has put you into the board for their interests, and then you're saying you're acting independently. Let me give you a good example. Like in our, let me not go on that direction. Let me not go that direction. Yeah, but chairman, wacha niulize kwa niaba ya Wakenya wale ambao wanatutazama. Wewe kama chairman wa Telkom uliwekwa pale na Ilios, hiyo ni kweli ama la?
Nataka kwa Kiswahili tu kwa niaba ya Wakenya ambao wanatuangalia. Naomba hiyo. Uliwekwa pale na Ilios. Kwa Kiswahili. So wewe umekaa pale kwa sababu ama kwa niaba ya Ilios. So kama Ilios wangu kuweka pale au ungekuwa kwa board? Lakini board haikukataa. Ukisema board hapa ni nani?
Mheshimiwa, please address the witness through the chair kindly.
Oh, sorry chair. Chair, mimi nimeomba kwa niaba ya Wakenya ambao wanatutazama niulize ile maswali ambayo tutafanya sisi wote tuelewe. Kwa maana hii ni maneno ya pesa ambayo ilipotea. Tunachunguza kama ilipotea. Na ni swala muhimu sana. Sasa mimi nimeuliza kwa Kiswahili ndio Wakenya ambao wanatutazama waweze kuielewa. Ule ambaye ako hapa, chairman, mwenyekiti, anasema yeye aliwekwa kwenye board ya Telkom Kenya, na wale watu ambao tunachunguza hapa ambao wanajiita Ilios. Na baada ya kuwekwa pale ndio amefanywa chairman na wale members wengine ambao waliwekwa kwenye hiyo kamati. Sasa mimi nauliza tu, kama mtu amekuajiri kazi, utaenda ufanye kazi kama mtu kibinafsi ama utafanya kazi kulingana na yale matakwa ya yule ambaye amekuajiri? Kulingana na mimi naona ni kana kwamba ule ambaye ameletwa hapa chairman, mwenyekiti wa Telkom, anatudanganya. Mimi naona ile Ilios na naona ile Jamhuri Holdings na ile Orange Telkom. Wewe kama mwenyekiti wa Telkom ni kama kuna kitu tuambie ukweli. Maana tarehe 11 ule mkurugenzi mkuu kutoka Ilios alikuandikia uchitoe kwenye Telkom kama mwenyekiti, na umekubali hapa, umekiri ya kwamba ulikuwa uchiondoe. Sasa walikuwa wanakuandikia kama nani? Alikuwa anakuandikia kama mfanyikazi wao. Sasa mbona wakuandikia wewe directly wakuambia uchitoe? Sasa chairman, mwenyekiti, mimi naona kuna kitu hatupati vizuri. Ya mwisho, tarehe 11 au Ilios ambao wewe wamekuandika kazi kabla ufanywe mwenyekiti, walikuambia utachitoa kwa sababu isa ile shares itachukuliwa na serikali, na wamekuambia hiyo inaendelea na yule CS wa treasury, waziri wa treasury. Na huyu ukachinyamasia mpaka tarehe 19 waziri akakuandikia barua. After waziri kukuandikia barua tarehe 19 ukanyamaza tena mpaka tarehe 29 ukajibu. Kuna kitu useme ukweli. Tafadhali ya mwisho kabisa. Ametuambia pia ya kwamba serikali ambayo tumeipata sasa hii amemshauri yeye ya kwamba watafute mwekezaji mpya anunue ile hisa ya Ilios. Nataka tuambie ni nani amemshauri yeye? Serikali si Amofaz. Ni kuna mtu hapo ndani. Ni nani amemwambia? Ni waziri wa fedha ya sahi? Nani huyo amemwambia tafuta mwekezaji mwingine? Ama yeye pia anataka kuturudishia Ilios 4? Asante mwenyekiti. Haya, tutapata majibu haya kutoka kwa mwenyekiti ambaye ni shahidi wetu katika kamati hizi mbili. Lakini pia mheshimiwa, ningependa pia uweze, kwa sababu hii itaweza kukusaidia na kukuelekeza. Swali zuri sana umeuliza pale kwenye stakabadhi ambazo uko nazo. Kuna barua moja pale kutoka kwa Jamhuri Holdings Limited ambayo imemwandikia mwenyekiti wa Telkom Kenya, na ukiangalia pale kwenye beti ya mwisho kunayo swala ambalo linaletwa hapa linalowiana na special na SPA ile ambayo imeandikwa, na wale wana Jamhuri wanajaribu kuelezea jinsi chair alivyoweza kuteuliwa na jinsi ambavyo hawa Jamhuri walidhania ama waliwania atakuwa mwenyekiti, kwa sababu itasaidia hilo swali lako na itasaidia kamati katika kuendelea mbele. Finally, Chairman, I would request that after you get these final requests, these final responses, kindly just adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, my co-chair. Unajua huyo nijaribu kuendeleza kwa Kiswahili. Mheshimiwa Mayo Kimayo amesema jambo na tulikuwa tunajadiliana hapa to put in perspective. Wakati mawaziri wa Jamhuri ya Kenya wanateuliwa na rais wetu, lazima waende kuwa approved na bunge. Lakini baada ya kuapproviwa na bunge, wanaenda kuwa mawaziri. Kwa hivyo hatuwezi sema ya kwamba yule ambaye amewateua mawaziri ni bunge, kwa sababu bunge ndio imefanya approve. Inamaanisha kwamba wale wameteuliwa na rais. So hiyo approval ni kama tu bunge. Kwa hivyo tukitumia mfano wako, basi inamaanisha kwamba yule ambaye amekuteua kabisa ni jamhuri. Kwa hivyo hiyo approval ya board ni process tu, lakini wewe ni approval wa jamhuri. Haya, mteule wa jamhuri ambayo ina maswali mawili ya kumalizia. Basi kama wewe ni mteule wa jamhuri, kama basi ingekuwa vile unasema uko independent director, basi kwa nini jamhuri walikusurutisha kujiuzuru baada ya wao kuuza zile share zao? Kwa sababu hapo awali wakati Orange walijiondoa na ulikuwa umeteuliwa na Orange hawakukusurutisha lazima ujiuzuru kwa sababu ya kwamba utajibu na mwisho. Haya, ni directors wote ambao walihitajika kujiuzuru baada ya hii transaction, ama ilikuwa tu hiyo tu wewe mwenyekiti peke yake? Karibu jibu haya maswali, asante.
Okay, asante kwa hiyo maswali. Ningetaka kutatua hili jambo ya kwamba mimi ni kweli nilikuwa nimeteuliwa na Orange, na wakati wa transaction ya 2016 mimi nilijiuzuru tena, kwa sababu kwa ile mkataba ambao walikuwa wameweka na serikali. Hata wakati huo wale ambao walikuwa wameteuliwa na Orange walikuwa wanatakiwa kujiuzuru wakati huo, lakini Helios wakaniuliza niwe nominated na wao, wakani-nominate na board ikani approve. Na hii ni jambo ambayo ningetaka kuhimiza sana, kwa sababu mimi siangalii mahitaji ya jamhuri. Mimi independent, naangalia masilahi ya kampuni peke yake. Sijaongea na jamhuri kwa hii jambo au jambo zingine. Yeah? Mimi I don't represent jamhuri.
Honorable members, you have to remember that the witness here is under oath.
Yeah.
So whatever submission that the witness makes is for us now to take that as a submission.
Yes.
Whether you agree or not will be observation you're going to make in our report. So even if you don't believe it, fine. But that's why the first thing we do was put the witness under oath.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Let me protect the witness. Please execute and complete your matter.
Mr. Chairman, this is not unusual. I'm in the board, as I said, of many companies where I'm independent board member, and I don't represent the interests of those who either nominate me into the board. And that's the way good governance runs. Because once you are appointed as a board member, you are supposed to have the interest of the company only and not of your shareholder. That's good governance. And that's exactly what I am. I was asked whether the letters that I took a long time to respond to the letters, I received the letter on the 18th of August and the other one on 19th of August. I responded on 29th. I can't remember why. There must have been something in between, but I responded on the 29th, which is within 10 days. But Chairman, I really need to clear this, because I am not a representative of Jamhuri Holdings. And if you really want to get Jamhuri Holdings, You have their contacts. You should get them to come here, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I think that's your conclusion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairman. We've had, I think, over 4 hours of this particular matter. Honorable Kemayo, let us conclude at that. And in any case, honorable members, tomorrow morning we have Jamhuri Holdings. Tomorrow morning. So we'll ask those questions to Jamhuri Holdings when they appear before us. I really implore you, let us not... Kemayo, please. Oh yes, that's a good question.
Thank you.
So yes.
Thank you. That's important. Yes, we had communication from the shareholder, who is the CS National Treasury, to that effect. That yes, the current CS, yeah, that we. Yes, we do. Yeah, we can submit that.
That's okay. So yes, the chair confirms that he has received instructions to look for a strategic investor by the current cabinet secretary for treasury. Is that your submission, Chair?
Yes,
is to help that document with us.
The letter is to help in the due diligence of a new investor coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, members, in any case, the CS Treasury again is appearing before us. So we'll be able now to verify all this particular information. Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Mr. Edin Njoroge, the chairperson, and the two gentlemen that accompanied you, representing the company secretary and the finance director. Let me tell you for a fact, the purpose of this inquiry is to make sure that the transaction is to ascertain whether the transaction was above board, is to make sure there is no loss of public funds, and is to make sure we safeguard the life of Telkom Kenya, and especially the stake of the innocent over 600 employees of Telkom Kenya Limited. We thank you and have a good afternoon.
Kindly members, after the witness leaves, we want to retain here for just a minute so that we can plan the order of our activities in the afternoon. Kindly. Chair Edin Njoroge, the members gracefully invite you to lunch. It will be an honor if you could join them at the lunch. And at your pleasure, you can take leave. Yes.